The Jungle Cruise has officially released in theaters and on Disney+, so let's talk about it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Diz TV. If this is your first time here, welcome home. We're so glad to have you. And as I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about Disney's newest movie, The Jungle Cruise. Now, before we get started, spoiler warning for the entire video, as I will be going through the entire movie. If you're new to my movie reviews, this is how it goes. I basically go through my overall thoughts to characters, to stories, and then with just some random things at the end. Then I will give a rating, a scale of 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. Then I will give a fun factor, which will be a letter grade, A being the best, F being the worst, with pluses and minuses wherever I so choose. With that, let's talk about my overall thoughts on this movie. This movie is pleasantly surprising. It really was something different that I wasn't expecting. I mean, we got a lot of commercials for this movie, but I really didn't know what I was going into. It really is just a fun, enjoyable ride with lots of puns and Jungle Cruise and Adventureland-esque references throughout the entire movie. Overall, it's a lot of fun. It's definitely a cross between the Pirates of the Caribbean and Indiana Jones meshed together into a Emily Blunt, Dwayne Johnson film that works really, really well. Next up is characters. This is definitely the shining part of this movie. Emily Blunt plays Lily Houghton, and she is just a phenomenal character. She's kind of like the rookie Indiana Jones, if that makes sense, of the story. But she is very determined to see this through. She wants to find the tears of the moon and the petals on that tree just for, science and to help people, even though they may not accept her. It really is done well. She is a fantastic character. It was also a bit of a rule breaker, which is kind of cool. But overall, really a solid female lead for sure. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson plays Skipper Frank, and he is fantastic. I was pleasantly surprised by how well he did. And now, obviously, he has done more bolder movies. He definitely plays this role really, really well. Now, while he also has done a lot of jungle movies, this one is definitely a lot different, for sure. I mean, there's a lot more paperweight to this, and he really cut himself out a real piece for this role, and he definitely rocked it, for sure. Don't take this role for granted. Sorry. Next is Jack Whitehall, who plays McGregor, Lily's brother, in the movie. He does, honestly, a fantastic job. He's very sassy, very not used to all the jungle environment. He brings way too much stuff for an adventure, which usually is more of the lady role, and is kind of a weird gender reversal of Lily and McGregor's roles. But it works really, really well here. Also, McGregor is one of the first Disney characters to come out as gay. And I gotta say, they did handle that aspect very, very well. It wasn't forced into the movie, and it wasn't like, felt blatantly obvious as Disney trying to do representation. It fit very well with the story, and, wasn't like the main driving force of McGregor's character. Overall, this is another solid character into our little trio that we have going on. Next, of course, is the villains, Prince Joachim, who represents Germany, and then Aguirre, who is a 400-year-old conquistador. They work well. I mean, they're good villains. They're not great villains by any means, but they do have some solid motivations. Aguirre wants to get the pedal in order for his curse to be broken, and Joachim wants to get the pedal for Germany so Germany can win the war, because, it's set during World War I. And while both their motivations are great, they definitely seem a little lackluster in the, you know, extra development department. Joaquin is not developed whatsoever throughout the story, and Aguirre is only developed to only help Frank's character. And so it works, but also doesn't. Like, their motivations, top notch, but their development, not so much. Overall, still pretty solid, and the characters are definitely the shining part of this movie. Moving on to story, this again, like the movie entirely, was pleasantly surprising. Of course, it dives into the more supernatural and the weird things, but that's kind of come to be expected with Disney attraction-based movies, even starting with Pirates of the Caribbean and the original Haunted Mansion. There's a lot of elements in the story that just fit right in place. The first act of this movie, or really the first half of this movie, is really, really well. Of course, again, the supernatural and the more science fiction-y, fantastical things that happen in the latter half of this movie can feel very weird, but it still, I believe, works quite well. We get to see a lot of Jungle Cruise ride references, not just in puns by The Rock and, of course, the backside of water joke, but also with just different references, like the Society, which, if you know anything about Disney parks and Adventureland, any of that, you would recognize the Society to be C, the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, which, of course, Dr. Albert Falls is a part of, which he is referenced in the movie. A lot of things just fit really, really well into the story and honestly go pretty great. The references, I think, are top-notch for this movie. It blends itself well, and overall, again, I was just pleasantly surprised with the story. Now, granted, it does have similar beats to many of Disney's, live action / fantasy films, but it still was enjoyable nonetheless. Now, time to wrap it up with my final thoughts. Holy cow. Man, I don't know. I am just surprised by this movie. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, because I honestly was a little worried about this movie. Jungle Cruise is one of my favorite attractions at the Disney parks, and while it has gone through changes over the last several months as it's getting ready to go through, or as it's gone through its changes and now it's a little bit of a different story. It's a fun film that honestly really, I believe, sets up this whole idea of the theme park universe well. Of course, if you don't know, Disney's trying to set up this whole Magic Kingdom universe of sorts with some of their attractions. Of course, we have Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion, which did not do great, but Pirates of the Caribbean did well. And then, of course, now we have Jungle Cruise. We have another Haunted Mansion coming up relatively soon here, along with a Space Mountain and a possible Tower of Terror project. So there's a lot of things going on with that. But I am excited for all of these projects because I was pleasantly surprised with the Jungle Cruise movie. The dynamic between The Rock and Emily Blunt work fantastic. The plot twists in this movie were definitely different. A little different. But overall, it's just, if I had to pick one word for this movie, it would be pleasantly surprised. For my rating of the movie, I give it a solid 7.9 out of 10. I really did enjoy this movie. It was a lot of fun. Granted, there are a lot of flaws. CGI was a little spotty in some areas. And just some things I think probably could have been changed. Some supernatural stuff felt a little weird. But it is a fantastic journey through this movie. And for my fun factor rating, I definitely have to give it an A-. So as of right now, it is Disney's best film of the year in my personal opinion. Let me know yours in the comments down below. I would love to hear it. Have you watched the new Jungle Cruise movie? If not, why'd you watch this video? You possibly got spoiled. Anyways, that's besides the point. Here's the point though. Thank you all so much for watching. Really hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. I greatly appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe down below and hit the bell to be notified for more videos on Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, the parks, and so much more. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a magical day. Goodbye.
Any travelers who may need to exchange foreign currency during their voyage needn't worry. There are banks all along our rivers.
I'd like searchlights in the night, gorgeous teeth and snowy white. Take a look, here comes my ball and chain. She's a funny gem to me, tons of personality.